Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl McColgan, founder of Feel Nourish Grow, coming to you from my kitchen today to share with you my pumpkin pie recipe. And this is not just any pumpkin pie, this is a keto-friendly pumpkin pie, because as you already know, if you've followed me or my channel for a while, I'm all about the low-carb, ketogenic lifestyle, and that's just how I roll. Pretty much stick to it all the time. That's just what works for me. It's not the only way to do it, but I know that there are so many of you out there that would love to still enjoy dessert, but still stay in ketosis at the same time. So that's where these kind of baking recipes come in. We ditch the traditional sugar, we use sugar alternatives, and then we also have to use something to replace. Of course, the wheat-filled wheat crust, the traditional pie crust, is full of carbs. So we use a substitute flour, which traditionally people use almond, coconut. There are a few other keto-friendly ones. In this one, I've chosen to use almond. I actually have a little story for you about this. So part of being a keto recipe developer, and particularly if you're doing baking, baking is challenging with keto. It's not exactly the same as just substituting this or that. The proportions come out different. The crust in particular is very different to work with than a traditional crust. It doesn't have gluten in it, right? So it doesn't have that stretch. So it can take some time. And for this pumpkin pie recipe, I really wanted to do a pecan crust because pecan and pumpkin together are so delicious. But what I kept running into was it just browned way too much. Pumpkin pie filling is kind of a custard consistency, and it generally takes anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour to bake. And so you add to that a crust that is prone to browning even more than an almond flour crust, because an almond flour crust is also very prone to browning. It just didn't work, unfortunately. So this is the 6th version of this pie, because I always make sure that I get everything exactly perfect for you, so when you make the recipe, you have success with it. That's why also I have a whole video after this about putting it together, working with the crust, how you do all of that, so that it really sets you up for success. So here, I'll just kind of show you a little closer up the finished product. And so that could be on your Thanksgiving table this year. Easy to stay keto during the holidays. You still can make these substitutions and have people enjoy dessert at the same time. The one thing I'm going to insist that you get for this project is a pie shield. And this is a silicone one. It adjusts to different sizes, so I can go all the way if I have a bigger pie crust. So it's a great useful tool that'll be around your kitchen for years, particularly with the almond flour crust and definitely with that pecan flour crust. Protecting the edges of your pie with a pie shield will prevent it from getting way too brown. Now, still, of course, it's going to brown because it's almond flour, and that's just the nature of it. But it still turned out this time to be a really nice, even pretty color, and that's what we're looking for. The second thing I want to say about making this pie 6 times is my original plan, and if you'll look at, I'll insert a photo here, but you can decorate the top with these beautiful fall shapes. So I got some leaf cookie cutters, made the veins in the leaves. I did this a couple times in previous versions of the pie. By the time I got to the 6th one, quite honestly, I was just being lazy. And I was like, okay, I gotta get this out there so that you guys can have it in time to make for Thanksgiving and give time Google to find the recipes. So a future time I may revise my photos and add those beautiful fall shapes to the top, but I highly recommend doing that. You can, what you do is you just make a separate batch of the dough and kind of make them like cookies in the oven separately, and then when the pie is all finished and as it's cooling, then you decorate it with the shapes on top, and there's still plenty of moisture on the top of the pie to make the shapes stick. So without further ado, we'll move on to the recipe. Pay particular attention. A lot of it's just mixing. I did use a food processor, but you could totally do this recipe by hand completely. The only thing I recommend is using a pie or dough cutter for when you do the butter into the crust, because just like our traditional pie crust, you're going to want to work with really cold butter, have it still in chunks so that it makes the crust less dense as it cooks when you have those chunks of butter. So you will need like the little pastry cutter if you're mixing by hand. Otherwise, I just used a food processor throughout. But you'll want to pay particular attention to working with the dough. You want to make sure it's super cold when you start to work with it, that you do it as quickly as possible. That'll give you the lightest crust, and be sure not to overmix it as well, because that just will make your crust more tough, just like traditional flour crust. So anyway, hope you enjoy this recipe. If you try it, please let me know. I would love to see your photos and hear your comments below. Also, I'm not a big YouTuber, but why not subscribe to my channel while you're here? Every time I make a video now, I generally make some kind, or every time I make a recipe now, I generally make some kind of video to go with it. So if you just want to keep in touch, want to keep up with the latest keto thoughts, wanderings, recipes, whatever it is, then subscribe. At some point, point, maybe I'll get a little better at being a YouTube person and putting more videos up. But until then, let's move on to the recipe. Subscribe if you